Alright, hello everyone. This is Brave Sir Robin from the .org, bringing you another battle from EB Online. And this is a special battle. This was fought towards the end of last year. It was one of our two historical battles that we'd chosen. The battle we chose to represent in this instance is Magnesia. And Magnesia took place, I believe, 190 BC. Between the forces of Antiochus III, or Antiochus the Great, of the Seleucid Empire, against Lucius Cornelius Scipio. I believe he was the younger brother of Scipio Africanus, the more famous Scipio, who had defeated Hannibal. And the battle's about to begin in just a moment. It took a while to bring all the armies and get them into this formation. So I'm just going to give you a brief rundown of what's going on here. So the battle was fought. Antiochus, after the Second Macedonian War, had determined that he wanted to become the ruler of Greece. The Romans sort of had their own plans in mind regarding Greece. Antiochus had landed at Greece. He'd campaigned in Greece and was eventually defeated in a battle at Thermopylae, which, as most of you will remember, was where the Spartans had been defeated by the Persians, but had that famous last stand. Anyway, Antiochus was defeated at Thermopylae and had to retreat back across the Aegean to Asia Minor, sort of stew in his own juices for a while. The Romans decided they were going to follow it up and teach him a lesson, and so they presented Scipio the opportunity to land in Asia Minor and campaigned against Antiochus. Rome was met up by Pergamum. In this scenario, we have Macedonia representing Pergamum because there is no Pergamese faction in EB1. There will be in EB2. And Pergamum were their allies in that area of the world. Okay, so and the Pergamese forces are led by Eumenes. This battle, we'll start off with the Roman side. The Roman side, Arhos Suidorix, is playing as Macedonia, or as Pergamum. He commands the right flank. In the center we have Shak, and Shak is playing as Lucius Africana, or Lucius Cornelius Scipio Asiaticus, actually, not Africanus. And on the left flank we have Vega, or Dusan, who is commanding that flank of the Roman forces. Opposing them, we have the Seleucid forces. The right flank of the Seleucids, which is where Antiochus III would have been stationed with his personal bodyguard cavalry, is commanded by Ranskjöld, also known as TCV. The center phalange line is controlled by Agathodaimon, and the left flank is commanded by Yavanna. And so this battle is just about to begin right now, starting off with the missile duel. So we'll just run through the armies. I'm not going to go through every unit because that would be ridiculous. As you can see, there are a lot of units involved on each side, which is part of the reason why these battles are so fun to begin with. Look at that phalanx line, and that phalanx only composes a portion of the army. So we'll start off with the Romans. Now the Romans we chose to represent in this way, in that there were two players controlling the Roman forces, approximately 2 legions worth. And each legion is half composed of traditional Roman infantry, Hastati, Principes, Triarii, etc. And the other half is composed of allied Italic infantry, as it would have been in real life. So because we don't have the exact equivalents, we're using some of the Italic infantry that is featured in EB, such as the Bruttian infantry to represent the equivalent of Italian, or allied Italian, Principes. And then the Hastati Samnitici, or basically the equivalent of the allied Italian Samnites, etc., etc. We also have some Greek troops thrown in there, such as Akontistai, Toxotai. I believe there's some Svendonetai somewhere. And then Velites, of course, in the front. So there's two armies basically composed of the same army composition, and of course with the cavalry wing of Equites Romani. And then of course Lucius Scipio in the back, getting a good view of the battle. And look how massive these forces are. It's pretty crazy. The Romans actually also brought elephants to this battle. In real life, these elephants didn't take part in the battle because, well, we'll see in a second why. But we decided to bring them anyway, since traditionally that is what the Romans had brought to the battle, and, well, who knows, if things had gone differently, the Romans might have had to use them. Now, the Pergamese forces don't really have much infantry. They have 4 units of peltastae in the front. There's some slingers. There's a mix of some allied Thracian and actually Macedonian forces who had joined up for the battle. And then, of course, the Pergamese cavalry, which is the main portion of the force. A couple units of Longophori Hippeis and some Hetyroi. So yeah, that's basically that force. As you can see, the allied Pergamese and Roman missile troops are losing badly against the Seleucid forces. But the Seleucids have a huge army. A lot of different fighting styles in it. There's some mercenary Cretan archers, Persian archers you'd expect, of course. A humongous phalangi line in the center. Varying degrees of experience, but mostly Pantodapoi Phalangitai. This was a Seleucid army that was rather hastily raised by Antiochus III after his defeat to the Romans, so it wouldn't have been full of veterans. And there's some Agriaspides to hold down the right flank. Also some Galatian heavy spearmen, there are some on either side. But the real strength of the Seleucids lies in their cavalry and in their elephants. And you can see, each side of the Seleucid line has 3 units of Hellenikoi Cataphractoi, as well as 1 unit of Hetyroi. And that is an absolutely devastating arm. In fact, in the actual battle, what happened was the right flank of the Seleucids completely obliterated with 1 cavalry charge the entire left flank of the Roman army. The only reason the Romans eventually came to win the battle was that Antiochus sort of got carried away in his cavalry charge and decided to continue all the way to the Roman camp, somewhere off in the distance. And the Pergamese forces managed to disrupt some of the chariots which were stationed on the Seleucid left. The chariots rolled back into the cavalry force on their side, completely disrupted it, and the Pergamum was able to take advantage of this, rout the cavalry forces, and swing back behind the vulnerable phalanx, while the victorious cavalry of Antiochus was making a beeline towards the camp and eventually beaten off. So we felt with this amazing cavalry superiority of the Seleucids, it would be actually hard for a human player who knew what not to do to lose this battle. Anyway, we'll see what happens. There's also some horse archers, a couple of skirmishers, 3 units of Indian elephants, and there's 1 unit of elephants on the Roman side, but Indian elephants are better than the forest elephants, and there's 3 times as many of them. So you'd expect that to be a huge advantage to the Seleucids. A unit of Scythe chariots, outdated though they may be, they can still have some use. 2 units of Querpos, representing the allied Galatian cavalry. A unit of Hetyroi Sphidoroi to sort of simulate how there would be Hellenic skirmisher cavalry at the battle, probably heavily armored. Another unit of Hetyroi and 3 units of Hellenikoi Cataphractoi on this flank. Now what the Seleucids make up for in cavalry and in missile units and elephants, they lack in mobile infantry. Of course, with the Galatians, there's a couple units of, I believe there are Gauls who are armored in a Greek fashion, so we use Celtohellenikoi Haplitai to represent that. Some Anatolikoi Philetai, the Anatolian light axemen, and some Uzali, mercenary Carian warband. But the battle's about to begin in earnest. This was just really a skirmishing duel at this point, which the Seleucids clearly got the better of. But now the Romans are bringing up their forces against the non-phalangite infantry of the Seleucids. And so, I'm going to keep commentating throughout the battle, but I'll just let you enjoy some of these things that are about to happen. This is a really fun battle. Anyway, You can see a javelin exchange. The heavy peel of the Romans and their large shields help them get the better of this duel. You can see the soldiers dying here, much more than the Romans are dying. You have a bit of a standoff. Anyway, now what the Roman players do here is they say, well, you have this huge phalangite line, we're just going to ignore it. And this was historically actually somewhat a big reason why the Romans were successful against phalanx. Not that they necessarily ignored them, but that they are able to operate individually as units rather than as one long line like the phalangites have to in order to be successful. And so they were able to break up the formation and get in among the pikemen. Make them drop their pikes, and a pikeman's not very much good now, is he? Alright, so you can see the Seleucid players rushing to sort of remedy this. But the Romans are quicker, they've taken the initiative. And amazingly enough, even with all this heavy cavalry, this flank of the Seleucid line is giving way. And now you can see the chariots came under fire. He doesn't want the chariots running amok, so he pulls them back. Now, what's going to happen over here really is the Romans are going to engage in a big mass and actually catch some of these Seleucid pike units out of phalanx formation as they're running over. And with our rules in EB Online, you can't turn pikes once they're engaged. So if your pike unit is stuck either out of phalanx formation or facing the wrong direction, you can't just turn those pikes. You have to let the unit sit and either come out of phalanx mode and engage or just try to run it away. So he chose to buy some time with these units. We can see the Romans rushing around this flank. This is a really quick battle. It's going to be hard to describe all the action that's going on. These peltasts are running up, and he's running his cavalry away and leaving these elephants exposed here. Now remember, there's 3 players on each side, and it's sort of hard to see who is who. These are Agathodaimon's elephants. He's busy managing his phalangite line. He didn't even notice this. And these javelins are going to come raining down in just a second and really give those elephants a what for. See? And that in fact caused the elephants to rout. And so that's a absolute coup early on for the Roman player. And look, they already have infantry around the flank. The Seleucids are just not quick enough here. They're too busy worrying about their expensive cavalry, making sure they don't get caught up with the infantry, to properly form their line. Now Antiochus is over here. He doesn't really have anything in front of him. You know, a couple of velites, but that's about it. So he's going to have to come over to this battle eventually. Anyway, the Pergamese player has brazenly advanced, just like in the real-life battle, and has completely, not routed in this case, but has completely enveloped this phalanx over here. Look at this. There's some Seleucid infantry running around over here to, pardon me, to help defend this flank. But that's not going to be enough. There's a lot of Roman infantry, you should remember. There's a lot of Roman infantry just sitting here. And the Roman infantry is slightly more experienced than the Seleucid infantry and slightly better in combat. As long as they're not engaging phalangites head on. And now again you can see, all this cavalry is no good because there's no infantry anywhere to support it. And there's all skirmishers just bunched up here in the middle. They can't really do much. This is really a brilliant move by the Roman player. Now the phalanxes are going to start to move again, I believe. You really need to start marching forward, engaging those Romans, and using this line here as an anvil for your hammer, which are all these heavy cavalry.